What's happening, Junior Golf Blueprint fans? It's Masters Week. Got the logo, the green, and the backdrop and the TV. You can see Masters is a religion to this pro. Anyways, today on the podcast, we have one of my favorites. I've known her for a long time. We've competed against each other in junior league matches. I've helped coach her a little bit along the way, but she is from Scotland. Her name is Rachel McQueen. You may know who she is if you've spent any time at the little course back in the early 2010, like 2012, 2013 days. You'd know who she was. So, anyways, Rachel is a fantastic golfer and a fantastic ambassador for the sport, especially for you young ladies out there. Strongly recommend looking up to what Rachel has done with her game and her story of how she traveled from across the pond to the States on a whim to play college golf and did fairly well. So, without telling too much of the story, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And if you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you hit that little subscribe button on YouTube as well. Let's get into the show and let's introduce the Rachel McQueen. What's up, junior golf fans? So, today on the podcast, I have the lovely Rachel McQueen. I've known this girl for a long time, but she hasn't been in the States for a long time. She has departed us and went to Scotland, back to her homeland, and we got to know each other back in the days of when we were coaching against each other in the junior league realms, and that was a constant battle back and forth between the two of our teams. And then one day, the United States government decided that she had to go. Unfortunately, even my letter of recommendation didn't get her stay in the country, so that was a very unfortunate day for everybody in Middle Tennessee. But without further ado, Rachel, say hello to everybody, and how did you get into the game of junior golf?
Hi guys. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. Matt and I have known each other for a very long time, but I fell in love with the game at the Open Championship. So I'm from Troon, which is obviously the home of Royal Troon, the Open Championship course there. And they had a bunch of initiatives in place to try and get juniors playing golf. So they had like junior coaching, free coaching. They had like little games in their like town halls that you could go and get involved in. And I kind of just wanted to see what it was about. And I was like, okay, this is fun. This is a little bit different from any other sport that I'd played. I was always into I played field hockey, did athletics and volleyball. So I was always being sporty. And then the Open obviously came and I had a little job at it. And I just fell in love with the atmosphere of it, the atmosphere of the game and being in the moment with it. And I've been hooked ever since. And as soon as my grandpa knew that I'd caught the bug, the golf bug, I was in junior lessons and I was in junior tournaments and I got my handicap as soon as possible. Nice. And then that's it, really. I just got addicted, and within 4 years, I was a scratch golfer and playing for my country. So it was a bit whirlwind, but yeah, I wouldn't change it for a minute. And my one regret is not picking up earlier.
What was it about Troon and the Open at Troon that really kind of caught your eye? What was it about that experience?
It was tournament golf. I think anybody and everybody, if you're a golf fan, you have to go and experience it. It's completely different from obviously watching it on the TV and following people, but you just get drawn into, you feed off people that are excited about the game. You're surrounded by people that are in love with the same game that you are, and you just feed off of that. And I was in the 18th grandstand watching Todd Hamilton win after meeting him the previous night and getting his autograph, where I'd asked him on the Saturday night of the Open Championship how he was doing, because I had no idea who he was. And he signed my program and he was like, yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. And I was like, well, I'll be cheering you on Sunday. And there I was on the 18th grandstand watching him win the Claret Jug, which was a bit surreal. And then I met him years later when I was actually in America, and I was playing with somebody that knew him, and he happened to be the group in front. and he went and got him, and I had to tell him, I had to tell Todd Hamilton my Todd Hamilton story when I was 20. So that was interesting. He kind of laughed and he thought it was funny, so I guess that was a good thing. But yeah, I
That's
just
awesome.
loved it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good story. I couldn't imagine having to like circle back around like that, like however many years later in your 20s, and like, so I have a funny story. May or may not have
Yeah,
been the little kid.
yeah, it was. We were playing. I was playing at a golf course called Vaquero in Texas, and that's where he like lives. I don't know if he lives there now, but he has like a house that has like the claret jug in his front gate.
Oh, wow.
Um, and he was the group in front, and someone said, "Oh, Todd's in front of us," and I was like, "Oh, I've got a funny Todd Hamilton story." And then I was like, "Great!" Now they went and got him, and I have to tell him the story. So, but no, he was lovely. I wish he'd done more since winning the Open, but I guess when you win the Open, you're kind of like, well,
Yeah,
you can
that's.
put the claret jug in your gates.
I have a very similar like one with Jim Furyk. So Jim Furyk and I went to the same high school,
Oh
and
wow!
so obviously 30 years apart, but same high school. And so what he had always put on this tournament for junior golfers, and I caught him in the parking lot changing his shoes. And every year the USJ gives you one of these little hats of like the US Open or whatever, right? So I happen
Yeah,
to have the hat. He's right there in the parking lot. I have him sign it. It's the year he wins it at Olympia Fields, and I'm like, I just
wow.
had Jim Furyk sign this hat 3 months before he won the dang thing, and I mean, this is gonna be worth some money. Nothing. Just never won another major. The only one he got. I was like, well, maybe it's still worth something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's mad when you think about it. I had no idea that he'd only ever won.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he came close a handful of times at the Masters, like Sunday
yeah,
back nine stretch, and then he had another run at the PGA. I can't remember where, but I mean, he was a local hometown guy, right? So everybody was kind of like, Jim Furyk was, our hometown boy or whatever. But
yeah.
it was entertaining to say the least. Like the 12-year-old me catching him in the parking lot changing his shoes. So, anyways, when you got the bug, you got to scratch really quick, which impressively quick in 4 years. You said you were playing for your country, so what was that like, and what's the story there when you were playing for Scotland?
Well, I'd been playing for like a couple of years and I was playing in the Scottish like amateur open, and the girls golf team at that time had these purple Ping Hoofer sandbags that had this big like Scottish like thistle on the ball pocket, and Scotland and white writing up the side of the side pocket, and I was like, I want one. And that was it. I was like, I want one of those bags so badly, and I just worked really, really hard. And then I was playing in like every single kind of junior qualifying tournament you could in the country, playing up and down in all these amazing courses. And then the under 18s is where like the girls team is picked. And the number one golfer at that time in my country was Carly Booth. And she was obviously playing in the tournament, and she was one of my closest friends. We got paired together in the quarterfinals, and she against me, she was like 4 or 5 under par. So I just couldn't keep up with that. So when she beat me, it was like, because both of us like wanted me to get selected.
Mm-hmm.
So when she beat me, we like hugged at the end to like obviously finish the match, and we both just started crying because we thought that like, because obviously she wanted to win the tournament, but
Right.
she didn't want to put out her best friend, and like that possibly being a reason that I wouldn't get picked. But ended up it worked out and I was selected, and I think Carly was more excited about me being picked for Scotland than I was. She like screamed when they said my name. So and I got to caddy for her for the rest of the tournament and be on her bag when she won the event, which was pretty special. And yeah, so we played, it was the home internationals, which is Wales, Ireland, England, Scotland against each other
Mm-hmm.
over 3 days. And it was held in Scotland the year that I hosted, that I was playing for Scotland. Panmure Golf Club, which is an amazing course in between Carnoustie and Montefief.
Mm-hmm.
And I went back there last year and filmed a course vlog, and my like pictures on the wall, and it's just like, it's so surreal. And it brought back a lot of memories of playing. The only thing that I would say that was annoying that week was it rained the hardest I've ever seen for 3 days. They had these like big fireplaces in the clubhouse, and I remember me and the girls were like in there trying to dry off our clothes because the Scotland waterproofs weren't waterproof.
Yeah,
We were
jeez.
Yeah, so we were like wearing our like Galvin Green waterproof trousers underneath our like other waterproof trousers that we had to for our
Even
team
swing
clothing.
the club. I mean, that's a lot of
Yeah.
gear.
Yeah, it was a lot, but anything to stay dry, I guess.
Mm.
But yeah, that it was amazing, and like to be able to say that I played for my country is something that will never get taken away from me, and I'm so glad I did it. But it just cemented the thought process that I wanted to play this game full time, and that was that really.
Yeah, I mean that's probably one of the bigger differences between the United States and a lot of other countries is that we don't really have that like national real team kind of persona like in the States. It's very individual. It's not,
Yeah.
there's obviously Walker Cup and a couple other junior style Ryder Cup format things, but it's not as known, I'm assuming, as what that was for you, right? I mean, it's not like a milestone for a lot of kids.
Yeah, like, and I think that that's one of the reasons that the Ryder Cup, where the US team do struggle with that companionship,
Hmm.
because we're in Europe, we're brought up that the majority of like our team stuff, like you have your club team, you have your county team, and then you have your country team. And all those team events, we play match play. We play foursomes, we play better ball, and then a lot of our club championships are also match play. So we're also used to playing that type of golf, which is completely different to,
Right.
just playing stroke play. And I think that that's kind of one of the reasons that the US does struggle with that. Whereas like Team Europe and other countries, we're brought up on that. So we just have that automatic, we know exactly the game plan and stuff.
No, I've said that for at least a decade at this point, however long I've been coaching golf. I mean, it's
Yeah.
obvious that our lack of experience in team match play formats is just shows every Ryder Cup and President's Cup. Now, for whatever reason, our record in President's Cup's a little bit better, but I still think it's hard to get a lot of these personalities to like jive, especially at that level. I mean, they're all
Yeah.
alpha, just crazy competitive. Yeah, who knows? But it was interesting because like obviously I've talked to you a lot and talked to other people who've played over there in Europe a lot, and it's funny how like different like your junior golf path versus like somebody out of the States is in learning the game from a competitive standpoint, right? Like you were saying, like
Mm-hmm.
more match play. Hell, I don't even think we played foursomes it like ever. Like I don't think I've ever had to play that in like a competitive format my entire junior career.
Yeah.
Like you look at alternate shot and they're like, what? Why does he have to hit? He sucks.
Yeah.
So what? Obviously, you know, college is even different from Europe versus the States, right? From what I
Yeah.
understand, sometimes you take like a gap year before you even go to college. So
Yeah.
what was your draw to go to play in the States versus staying over there in Scotland?
The weather.
Not right now. You want me to go show you the weather right now? I'm recording this from my bonus room because I can't leave.
Yeah. No, yeah, for me, I knew that America was where I needed to go to like up my game, because in Scotland, like we struggle with the elements. Like it's very common for us to get snow in majority of the country. It's very common for us to have rain. As much as we like joke about it, it's kind of one of those things that you're kind of battling against. And the last thing I want to do is go and hit, tons of balls in the rain.
Mm.
So I knew that it was a huge opportunity for me, but it kind of didn't happen. So I was at a college in Fife, so just outside St Andrews, and my lecturer there, he kind of started his own company, and he kind of came to us and he was like, look, if you're wanting to go D1 or D2, he's like, it'll be X amount of money and I can't guarantee a full scholarship. And at that point, my family were like, we can't afford it unless you can 100% guarantee a full scholarship. There's nothing we can do. And that was heartbreaking, but I knew that, okay, that's kind of the end of that. Like, how do I focus on? Unbeknownst to me, my lecturer had been contacted by a junior college in Texas, and they had somebody that had just dropped out, an international player, and they had a full scholarship, and they were asking if he had anybody, and he sent swing videos, and they were sold. So without ever, I had only been to America once when I was 9 to go to Disneyland, and I had never seen the college. I had never met my coach in face to face. I hopped on a plane from Scotland and moved halfway across the world from my family and started a scholarship in Waco, Texas for 2 years.
That's patently crazy. That is absolutely crazy. I mean, I thought I was
Yeah.
brave leaving and going 1,000 miles away. No, that's nuts. That's absolutely nuts.
Yeah.
So what was it like day one when you showed up? I mean, you've never, like I said, you've never been to the States by yourself. You've never even been to this state. So
Yeah.
what happened? You showed up and you're like, cowboy hats, trucks, and boots.
Yeah, well, fortunate enough for me, there was a girl who had previously played in the team. She's like 5 years older than me. She'd also played for Scotland, and she went to McLennan. And so I messaged her like the night before, and I was like, is Coach Stan as nice as he comes across? Like, what's that all about? And she's like, he's like a second dad. Like, you won't be disappointed. You'll absolutely love it. So that can obviously calm the nerves a bit. But I turned up to the airport and I was picked up by Coach Stan and the other British girl on the team, Lydia, who's from London, who I'm still best friends with to this day. And it was so awkward and it was so warm. And I was like, what am I doing? We then like got in the car and I flew into Dallas, Fort Worth. So Waco's like 2 hour drive from there. So 2 hours in the car with two people that I've only like never met. And I just like, I'm a chatty person anyway, but like when I'm like anxious, I chat more. So I think I talked the entire 2 hours just like talking and trying to ask questions and stuff like that. And then we went to the school, we collected like a few of our merch, I guess, like our stuff, our uniforms, which is exciting, and went and got our pictures taken for our passes, and then I met the rest of the team and moved into my room, and then I think the thing that took the most adjusting was the food and the weather.
I could imagine the food probably had a little more spice than you're accustomed to.
Well, a little bit spicier, but then for me, it was the amount of food that you guys had. Like, that was the thing. Like, I couldn't believe. I was like, oh my God, that's so much food. I'm going to get so fat.
Freshman 15, freshman 30, whatever.
Oh, freshman 15, straight away. Honestly, I was Tex-Mex and fried chicken and all the stuff I shouldn't have been eating. But, oh no, it was so good. But yeah, my team were amazing, and because of where we were ranked, like, as much as a lot of people are like, oh, D1 is the be all and end all, 100% not. Like, there's so many opportunities at D2 and even more at junior college. And I would definitely say to any junior that wants to play golf, like, really go for it. If you want somewhere that's competitive, where you're going to play Division 1 tournaments, you can also get your education and kind of figure out what you want to major in if you're not too sure. And also just like, you know, travel all these different states, then JUCO should never be ruled out. Like, we played all Division 1 tournaments. The only junior college events we played in were nationals and regionals. Like, we played twice in Texas. The rest of them were in Arizona, Florida, Mississippi, Arkansas, like all over. And I was also competing against other international players that maybe hadn't done well enough in their SATs for Division 1 or Division 2, so that they'd been basically told by the D1 schools, hey, try junior college, up your game, up your education for 2 years, figure out what you want to major in, and then transfer after 2 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, I would suggest it to anybody who's not sure. Like, it is highly, highly competitive.
Oh yeah, I mean it was funny because like when I was growing up, where I grew up in Pennsylvania, JUCO schools weren't really a thing. Like there were smaller colleges, but nobody ever really called them like junior colleges, right? Nobody went there for like 2 years and then bounced and went to Penn State or something. It was always like
Yeah.
if you went to Shippensburg, you went to Shippensburg for 4 years and graduated from Shippensburg. And then
Yeah.
I went to Mississippi State, right? And when I went down there, there was a bunch of guys that did the JUCO thing for 2 years, didn't get the ups to Division 1 or whatever, so they went to PGM program like I did. So they were transferring in as juniors or sophomores after a year or two at JUCO schools, and I was like, JUCO? What the hell's a JUCO? Like, what are you guys talking about? And then that's when like my eyes were open to junior college. That was 15 years ago. But I've told plenty of kids that now, when they're trying to do their college scholarship stuff, it's like, if that's the goal and we're not there yet, this is a great route. And I actually have a kid that I've off and on worked with another coach who did that. He went to school in northern Alabama. I think it was Troy, maybe, or no, where did Trey go? I can't remember. But Trey went to a JUCO school for a year, and now he's playing for UNC Charlotte.
Yeah.
And it just worked out, right? He did it for 1 year and went on. And it's funny, man. It's just there's so many ways to get there. So many ways.
Yeah, and like for me, it was the fact is I was going into a team where I knew straight away I was playing number one.
That's
Whereas at the bigger schools, you don't know, you might not get to play every tournament. I knew I was playing every tournament. I was going to every single tournament. I was getting as much golf as I possibly can. So I would much rather do that and up my game and up my education with the possibility of progressing,
sure.
opposed to go to a D1 and struggle to get on the team and struggle to, like that would be disheartening to any 18-year-old.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, and that's something I remind kids that want to go play at they have Power 5 conferences, right? Your big SEC, yeah. Big Ten, whatever. I tell them like, look, if that's where you want to go, the likelihood of you even getting a start your freshman year, very small. And and like I taught next to Vanderbilt, which is across the driving range from where you were when you were at Tennessee, and those guys, I was there when Matthias Schwab, Will Gordon, Theo Humphreys, John Augustine, Patrick Martin were all on the same team together. Like, there's your 5, and they're all playing professional golf now. Like,
yeah,
and 3 of them are off to a heck of a start. So it's like, good luck. 63 is your qualifying number just to play the tournament in college. Like, welcome to Monday qualifiers at professional golf too, by the way.
Yeah.
So how did you played out your college career? How did you enjoy that experience? Obviously, it sounds like it was a good one, but what at the end of that road, when you look back at your college run, what was something that you took away from that?
God, like it was such a surreal experience. So, like as I mentioned, like my grandpa was like one of the reasons I play. Like me and him, he took me to all my lessons and took me to like all my tournaments and stuff. And he was like, as much as he'd stopped playing at that point, he was like, I wouldn't be the golfer I am today without him. So he had been kind of like in and out of hospital before I flew to Texas. And just before I flew, like that was the healthiest I'd ever seen him. And then I'd been in Texas for 3 weeks and he passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the hardest thing I've ever been through, because like he was my person, and I had a tournament that following week, my first ever college tournament that following week. And all I wanted to do was fly home and be there. But I got like a phone call from my parents and obviously my grandpa's best friend as well, who also is an extremely talented golfer. He was like ex Walker Cup selector.
Wow. And
everything like that. And he called me and he was like, the last thing your grandpa would have wanted is for you to come home. So I went off to my first tournament and I won it. And I couldn't tell you a single shot that I hit. I just know that actually I can remember one shot, and it was my last shot. I was putting. I had like a 3-footer, and this bumblebee would not leave me alone. And like it finally left me alone, and I hit my putt and I hold it, and my coach just like yelped out and came onto the green and like gave me a hug, and he was like, "You've just won the tournament." So like that was my first ever college event, and and I'm one of those people that can remember like every single shot,
Right.
like everything, and I couldn't tell you like what the golf course looks like. All I can remember is that like putt. So then from then on, I was like obviously competing in a lot of Division One tournaments and trying to like kind of find my way.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to learn how to hit it higher was
Mm-hmm.
another thing that I had to just growing up playing links golf.
I remember trying to make you hit higher.
Yeah, I didn't think I hit it that low,
Oh
but
gosh.
yeah, and then yeah, it was my national tournament my sophomore year. I finished joint second at that, and then that's kind of I moved to Tennessee after that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that was kind of like the bookend and the bookends to my junior college career.
That's a heck of a story, but it also speaks to. I mean, there obviously there's a lot of people that listen to this that might have their own struggle in personal thing going on while having to compete, right? And we hear a lot of these stories
Yeah,
from tour players. With Jason Day is a great example here recently. Obviously, Tiger created his own problems, but then when his dad passed away, winning the British Open, the floodgates opened for him.
yeah,
It's interesting to me that like you can't remember anything from the round though. It's like you were like channeling like another level of focus or attention to your game that it went next level, and for you to win the event, that's just awesome. That's incredible.
it was. Thank you. It was so weird. It was like because I am one of those people that I love stats. I love
Mm-hmm.
like, but it was just like very surreal, and it like my team were just obviously like it was just such a weird event for my team because obviously we barely knew each other,
Mm-hmm.
but they just like rallied like a family around me. And that's one thing that I've said to any, especially like international players I know that are wanting to go to America. It's like your team become your family.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that happens from the moment you arrive at the airport because they just have this like connection that you're all in this together, and it doesn't matter whether you're American or international. Like your coach considers like is super protective over you, and like when I was going through this, like they just rallied behind
Mm-hmm.
me. So it wasn't just me that won the tournament because like my team ended up winning too. So it was just like crazy that we just like went on and won our first event as a team together. So
Yeah,
that was very crazy.
and I think the thing I would remind people that are going to go from international to play in the States is like you have that commonality of golf, right? Like
Yeah,
so everybody kind of knows that like you had to do some serious work to be good enough to be here. So like
yeah.
that element alone kind of automatically just kind of brings you in
Mm-hmm.
because it's this thing that's the base layer for everybody. Then everybody has their own personalities, what they're good at, what their
Yeah.
attitude's like, and stuff like that. But everybody can come around golf, which is kind of poetic, I guess, because it's the best part of the game. Is that's what brings so many different personalities together. That's what I tell a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and
But
I don't take the word family lightly because you fight with like family at times as well because you're with each other
yeah,
constantly. Like we didn't fly to tournaments, so we drove, and there was times where we were in a car for about 8 hours,
ooh,
like
driving
six
to
girls, eight
Florida.
hours. Yeah,
Ooh,
like oh no, we flew to Florida and we
oh,
flew to
thank you.
Arizona, but like everywhere else, like we drove.
Yeah.
And yeah, I remember like so the first tournament coach said to me, he's like, "Oh, our first tournament's in Texas." I was like, "Okay, great." I was like, "Okay, we're in Texas." And he was like, "Oh, it's Seguin, Texas." I was like, "Okay, cool." I was like, "How long is it going to take?" And he was like, 5 hours. I was like, 5 hours? We're going to drive for 5 hours and we're still going to be in Texas? I was like blown away. I was like, I can get from one side of Scotland to the other and then back again in like less than 5 hours. And you're telling me we're going to drive straight for 5 hours and still be in
It's a
Texas?
huge state. It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Uh, no, it's funny because and the kids now don't even realize this, but this is like the era of like you're lucky if you have like an iPod, let alone an iPhone. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
the era of like entertainment. You can't just whip up Netflix and just start watching it in the car ride. You know what I mean? Netflix was hardly a thing. You're still getting
It
DVDs
wasn't.
back then.
It
Netflix,
wasn't.
Netflix would mail you the DVD and then you'd watch it and then mail it back.
Yeah.
It's just different
Showing our
generation.
age.
Oh my
Showing our
god!
age. Big
Look,
time.
it's getting worse every year, right? Every year I teach this game, it's like I'll sit there and I'm like, and they're filling out forms or whatever, and it's like year you were born, 2008. I'm like, and you're a teenager. I'm like,
It hurts.
I'm
It
like,
hurts.
oh man, I'm getting old. So how did you go from Waco, Texas? I mean, you just bebopping around in your 20s. How did you go from Waco, Texas to Franklin, Tennessee? Like, what made that connection? Because that doesn't even make sense to me either way.
Yeah, so let's be honest. It was a boy. Um,
Yep, there it
and
is.
yeah, in my freshman year, I met a boy and did that whole thing that happens that you like fall in love. But yeah, so freshman year, and then we did a year of long distance because he was a sophomore and he transferred to MTSU
Okay.
because his dad lived in Nashville and was working. His dad was real estate, so was working on a project out there. So he wanted to go into business with his dad, so that made sense. So we did a year of long distance, and then like his dad is kind of like, I wanted to go and do this visa called an OPT visa, which is an optional training visa, which basically allows you to do something that's with your studies within work, and continue living in the States for a year. And I was fortunate enough to get mine extended because I was applying for another visa at that point. So I got accepted for the visa and it was to work for the golf house. And basically, his dad had got in contact and I came and I met the guys and chatted away to them. And yeah, like it just felt right. Like they were just, again, just so nice. And I love the Southern hospitality. So off I went. After nationals, I moved to Nashville and we moved to Cool Springs. Um, yeah, and yeah, we unfortunately didn't last very long. I think like living together, you kind of realize that he is the one or he's not the one, and he was definitely not
Yeah.
the one. So we moved in together the May, and by the November, I was moved out.
Oh my
But
gosh.
I was still working for the golf house at that point, and moved in with a girlfriend until I found somewhere, and then yeah, I just networked my butt off because at that point when I was like living with him, like I obviously knew people at the golf house, I knew yourself, and I knew like a few other people, but I didn't really like socialize outside of him. Like I would maybe like play golf and stuff, but I didn't really have much of a social life. And then I like made friends with some incredible people that are still my closest friends today. And yeah, I lived the life in Nashville, shall we say.
Not hard to do. Very easy to find a life in Nashville. I'll say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, everyone's so nice there. I miss it so much.
Yeah, I mean it was amusing because when you started working at Golf House, right, and we had and this is about the same time Junior League just became a thing, right, and so you and I had our teams, and it was like, I mean, it was a bloodbath. Like I think you and I were more competitive than the kids were, and I'm sitting there just rallying like, come on, Leon, let's go, come on, Leland, like trying to root these kids up. And then, one year we had a good year. The next year you had a good year, and it was back and forth, and it was just kind of like this constant duel. And I think that always like instilled this like I'm not going to say I have a small little notch on my belt or like chip on my shoulder when I play little course, but anytime my team gets lined up little course, there's a little bit of something extra for me. And
Yeah.
but it was amusing, right? And then you were still playing a little bit, and then I helped you a little bit. I can't say I helped you a lot, but I helped you a little bit before. And this is all kind of like leading up to the exit of the visa, where that was an unfortunate run. But when you look back at your Golf House, coaching and getting kids back into the game, what was it like, and what was some of the more memorable experiences for you while you were coaching there?
My juniors were everything. Like as much as I was still playing and practicing, I didn't think I was going to fall in love with coaching as much as I did. I was very fortunate in the fact that my role was 80% coaching, whereas in Scotland or any other European country, it would be flipped. I would maybe be doing 20% coaching and the rest of it would be shop work. So I was in a very great position, and yeah, the juniors, I just fell in love with each of them and fell in love with their like stories, and they're just being part of their process of falling in love with the game was amazing. And then seeing them hit it well and play well and come to me and they're winning tournaments and all sorts, it was amazing. And like I still am friends with a few of the parents on Facebook and stuff. Like when I see how big Gracie and Jack are now, I'm like, oh my god, they're actual human beings. They're not these like little kids anymore.
Jax is a monster.
Yeah.
He's huge.
So yeah, and I'm like, this is crazy. So it's amazing to see that there's kids that are still like sticking into the game that like I coached 6 years ago. And yeah, like that. And then obviously the PGA League. I remember like because my team were strong. Like I had these like four girls, which was like unheard of because it was mostly boys that were in the teams, and they
Never
were
heard of four girls.
they were so good.
Was it Shelly? Shinami.
Yes, and then there was two others. I
Yeah,
can't
see,
remember the other
they're
two.
still scarred in here.
I just remember like I obviously found out that you had a team because someone said to me like, "Oh, you're going to be like up against it. Like Matt has a strong team this year," and I was like, He has no idea." And I remember you coming to the golf house for our match, and I think it was now, and she like stood up and put it to like 1 foot, and I just remember the boys that were playing against these two girls just turned and like stared at you like their eyes like wide open, like we're gonna get destroyed. Like, what are you doing? You're literally sending us out to slaughter.
It was.
It was just, and those girls just destroyed them.
But to be fair to my kids, those four girls also are all going to play college golf now and were studs in their junior career. So yeah,
oh, absolutely. Yeah, but like it was just so much fun. Like we were super competitive, but I think that the kids like fed off of that, and a lot of them enjoyed it because they realized like, yes, like sport is a win or lose thing. Not everyone gets certificates, not everyone gets a trophy, like, and they learned quick, and you kind of figure out this is what you want. If you that feeling, then you've got to work hard for it. And luckily I was with these juniors that were dying for it, and they absolutely loved coming to practice because we would do these little games and they would play against me, and we would play the 9-hole course, and I would play it left-handed, and like we would have like so much fun. And like I think I just fed off their energy and their love for the game and them falling in love with it. But yeah, that definitely sticks out for me. And I still talk to Mr. Horton from time to time, and I met up with him at the Open when I was at the old course, and hopefully going to see him again in a couple of years' time when it returns.
Nice.
And yeah, like I've definitely, like I'm still in contact with people, like as much as like we don't speak every day. I know fine well that you're a DM away from like a chat or anything, and like yeah, it's crazy that I've made friends for life out there, and like I've been part of these careers for these juniors. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's awesome when you get a chance to reflect back when you have like a kid you worked with when they were a little young, and you've been at it long, and we're old enough now that you can see where they're at as a teenager, right? And they're in high school or they've gone to college, and like I have a kid that I've taught since he was 13. He's now a junior in college, and I've taught him the whole time. And to watch that transformation from 13, barely knocking it around the first time he hit 200 yards with his driver, first time he broke par in a tournament, first time he won, blah, 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 blah. And, it's just awesome to watch that journey. And it was funny because I got interviewed for some magazine article, and they asked me, like, what would you do if you weren't a golf coach? And the guy said, most of the guys say they would be a teacher of some kind if they did this. And I was like, you clearly don't know me. I'm like, I'm not a teacher. I'm very competitive, which makes me a coach. I'm like, I don't teach nothing. I coach, and I thrive for like competitiveness. Like that's just the state I live in. And so when Junior League came around, and like obviously you and I are very competitive people, I mean that was just like like you're right. I mean I think everybody kind of knew, like when West Haven and Little Course were paired up. I mean it's like we're like one match away from like just boom burning. And but it was fun, and I think it's like when kids like under your tutelage and under mine watch us be competitive, they know like, oh, coach over here is like serious. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think it just shows. I think we set a good example for them.
Yeah, and that's uncommon in golf. Like you see that with every other sport. So like soccer and football and basketball, you see the coach like wants it just as much as the kids do. Whereas golf, you don't really see that because it's not a team sport primarily, but
Yeah.
there is still the competitiveness there. And yeah, you definitely brought out the worst and best of me during those matches.
Yeah. No, I get it. I get it. All right. So Golf House had us run. I remember filling out a letter to try and keep you in the states. Even my letter to the president didn't help out. But
Yeah.
you go back home, and now you gotta figure things out again. So now you are like a social media influencer. You got your YouTube channel, your Instagram channel. You got all these cool things going on. You got Wilson Golf behind you. So what happened when you went back home? Obviously you had to kind of have like a life reckoning a little bit, but what did you do, and what's your game plan now?
Yeah, so when went back home, I obviously had a couple of things that I needed to consider, and that was, do I continue playing or do I go down the coaching side of things? The PGA down in the UK is very different from in America, and as I said, the facility that I was at was extremely unique in what I was able to do. So I had to kind of consider that. And I didn't want to be stuck in a pro shop. I'm not that kind of personality. And I
Get that.
still wanted to compete. So I was like, right, this is my opportunity to go for it. So let's go for the European tour. So I did it twice. I went to European tour school and I got like eligibility in the smaller tours, but I couldn't get to that next level. So again, I had to have a chat with myself and come to terms, okay, like what are we going to do? So I was like, right, okay, we still want this, so let's try and play in like the smaller tours. But how are we going to pay for it? It's super expensive, as you know, and it's really, really tough and gritty. And at the end of the day, like I want a life. I don't want to live with my parents forever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, right, okay, let's kind of, and this is when like Instagram was influencers were kind of becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hate the word influencer because I never did it to give influence to people.
Mm-hmm.
I did it because I wanted to showcase to sponsors, potential people that were going to help me pay for tour school, hey, this is what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I started doing it. And then I started doing a little like kind of behind the camera, like in front of the camera stuff, sorry. And, doing my little like YouTube videos and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I had a few people were like, so first of all, it was like Skechers. They were like, hey, can you come and like film this video for us? Can you come do this like presenting job for us? And then Scottish Golf were like, hey, can you come do presenting? The Scottish Golf Show were like, hey, can you come do the presenting? And I was like, oh, hang on a second, this is a lot of fun. And I had a better lifestyle then and was able to pay my bills doing that than I ever was trying to play full time. So I was like, okay, let's kind of keep this going. And then at that point, I was offered a full-time role as a marketing manager for a company, and I moved down to London, started doing that, and it wasn't what I expected. And I was still missing playing and creating my own social media. And then I moved to a golf travel company for golf breaks, and I ran their social media for a year. And I still was like, my heart's still in Scotland. Like, I absolutely love golf breaks. They're amazing, but I still feel as if I need to get back. So I'm now back living in Scotland, and like I'm a Wilson ambassador. I just signed basically a partnership with Adidas. So I'm now an Adidas ambassador.
Adidas.
Adidas. The guy who made it is called Addy Dassler.
I know, it's the joke. There's so many things we say differently. It's hilarious.
I know. So yeah, I am. Yeah, so like that's just unbelievable. And the thing is, for me, I think a lot of people, and this is why I don't consider myself an influencer, because I don't throw it down people's throats, and I don't reach out to these companies. I'm not like, hey, let's partnership. What I did is I just did what I basically created the content that I love, And these companies were like, hey, we want to work with you, which is to me the biggest compliment ever. Like, I'm working with these people because they want to work with me, and it's a genuine partnership. Like, I've been with Wilson now for 2.5 years, and I'm part of like the Wilson like little family. And like, I talk to the guy who works with all the tour players like on a weekly basis, and like it's just nice to feel part of a brand. Like, I'm not just like wearing the stuff or playing the stuff. Like, I'm part of that brand and representing those brands the best I can. But yeah, social media is ever changing. But yeah, it's exciting to now, as of a few weeks ago, I'm like full time now doing it and doing social media consultancy on the side as well, which is really terrifying but really exciting at the same time.
I mean, you have a lot of experience with it, right? And so
Yeah.
that obviously it's a new venture, so it's obviously has a little bit of scared, mentality behind there a little bit. But at the same time, you know what you're doing. You've obviously had a very successful run with it so far. Like when you talk about like how brands kind of got behind what you do, right? That's kind of like the big token, right? Is like you don't have to change who you are to accommodate somebody else, and that's I get the question a lot because as a teaching pro, they're like, what brand do you play? And it's like, well, I had my druthers. I could have picked whoever, but I picked whatever, right?
Yeah.
And again, like since I chose TaylorMade, I've had a chance to go to other companies, and I just kind of say, look, the rep for TaylorMade and I, we could be brothers. Like we get along super well. So at this point, it's not about TaylorMade. It's about my relationship with Darren and how Darren takes care of me. If I call Darren makes sure I get what I need, right? And so when you start building these relationships with the brands that you're a part of, what is it that you enjoy the most about, not to say giving back to them, but, your role in that relationship?
The support. Like, I love, like, I'm part of a team. Like, I love that feeling. But the creative process, so it's like trying to come up with unique ways that I can showcase the brand. And I think that that's what people are going to see on my social media a lot more this year, now that I'm full time doing it, is the behind the camera stuff. Because I think a lot of people just think that I'm the presenter, the host, the person that's in front of the camera. But I'm extremely creative, and I want to be able to be like, no, this is what I can do. This is the kind of content that I can create for brands and like showcase the best that I can. So yeah, it's an exciting time, and I love the creative process. But for any junior that's obviously like looking at these influencers and looking at these pros and their or teachers or whatever, I think that they just have to remind themselves that, golf is such an amazing sport. It can open up so many doors for you. And the route that you might be planning right now might not work out for you, but that doesn't mean that another door is not going to open. Like, it's such an amazing game that I wanted to be a professional golfer. I wanted, like, that was the be all and end all for me. That didn't work out, but I'm still thriving in the sport and doing the best that I can to grow the game. And like, you don't tend to get those other opportunities in other sports.
Yeah, and the question I was going to have for you too is like, coming at it from the female perspective too. Do you find that like the social media side of it too, for some girls that are trying to play versus go down the social media route, is there a struggle there? Or is that something that girls have to consider more? Or is like I can go struggle on tour, or I can do what Rachel does. You know what I mean? What's the thought there?
If you're planning on going down the playing route, you have to utilize your social media. Brands and sponsors are being more smart and realizing that this is a platform that can, help, bring awareness to them as well as help you. And it's a free tool as well, so you need to utilize it. But you need to be careful of what you're posting, because that post is up there for a considerable amount of time. Like, as much as you might be able to archive and delete it, all it takes is one person to screenshot it. So you want to make sure that what you're posting is true to you and not something that might be target you forever, because you don't want to be pigeonholed into that pretty girl that just posts the pictures with a golf club. That's the last thing you want to do, because you have so much more that you can offer to a brand's personality and everything like that. And yes, it might be scary to talk on the camera, but trust me, you get over it. You get used to people just having a look at you going, whatever. But at the end of the day, you're kind of doing your thing, and it is so important to utilize this free tool. If you're wanting to go down the influencer route, then I suggest picking what makes you different, what makes you stand out against all the other golf girls, golf babes, whatever. Because the last thing you want to do is again be pigeonholed into just the pretty girl that posts pictures with the clubs. Like, what makes you stand out? So for me, it's the fact is my journey makes me stand out and my accent makes me stand out. So my accent and my knowledge base is something that I'm more focused on this year. And this is something that can change as you change as a golfer. So when I first started, it was about my swing and my technique and showing my skill level. Then it was showing about how I can present, how I can host. And now it's, here's what I can offer a brand. Here's my personality a little bit more. And here's my creative side.
Right.
So it will change, but I would make sure that you're focused on what you want other people to know and what you want other people to see, because I keep a lot of my personal life to myself. I don't live my full life on social media.
Right.
And I think that's so important, because as soon as you give everything away, it becomes like it engulfs you, and that's so dangerous. You have to kind of be like, this is what I'm going to do, this is what I'm going to post about, this is my brand.
Yeah, it's tricky, and especially as you get farther down the road of having a following and the amount of followers you get, you have to really be careful what all you put out there too. I mean, you don't want somebody like tracking you down in the streets, or you know what I mean, and like I mean, I'm nowhere close to y'all's level, but even at just like the 5,000 people that follow me, it's like there was a guy that sent me a message, and like long story short, is a company that my dad used to sell. And so I literally just texted my dad, I'm like, do I need to like actually know this person? Like, have I met this guy, or just like some rando that just happens to sell the same thing that you sold? Like,
yeah,
and it's a slippery slope, and like Zach does a good job of the same thing you're saying, like a lot of personal life off to the side. Like for me, I just kind of keep a lot of my personal stuff to my stories. Like if my boys are doing something crazy, I'll post it up there because it's kind of funny or whatever, and I think people kind of like enjoy that part of me, being a goofball dad or whatever. And like the feed is like, golf. Like this is what I do for a living, right? And I try to that's kind of how I try and keep it separated. But social media can be such a great tool, but like you said, if you go down a rabbit hole of who you're not, it can be a very dangerous tool. And I have a lot of kids and a lot of parents that want to blow up their social media to help their college recruitment, right? And I'm like, look here, every college coach knows your kid didn't win every single tournament he went in, because that's all the post is how he won this tournament, and he didn't post again for like 6 months when he won again. Like the coach is gonna know something happened in those 6 months. Like, if you're gonna use it, you better put in the bad rounds with the good rounds and show how you respond. You know what I mean? And I think that's kind of what we have to be careful is like, social media can't be all the good stuff too, because that's kind of a false narrative a little bit.
Yeah, like I'm not saying to become a robot. I'm not saying to like just become this what your brand is. I'm just saying be true to yourself. Like it would be so easy, and trust me, like there has been times where I've thought, I could just post a bikini picture and with a golf club, and like it's great, like those likes do come in, but then afterwards, like that's not me, that's not who I am. Like,
what's the point?
and as a female, like I've had some horrible messages. Like I posted a picture last week and it was me in my yoga leggings and a sports bra. There wasn't skin, it wasn't sexualized or anything like that, and I had someone tell me I was classless, and I was like, oh my god, if this is the message that I'm getting for wearing leggings, what are those girls? But the thing is, like, that's me just working out, and I thought I looked cute, so I'm going to post it. But like, you have to there's a fine line with it, and you hit the nail on the head when you said is like, if you start something and you're being not true to yourself, people also know. They buy into people and they buy into realness. If you're being someone that's not you, people can tell straight away. they're self-aware. They know exactly when someone's faking it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very difficult to keep up an act for a long period of time.
Yeah, I mean, eventually it all comes out. I mean, you can't
Mm-hmm.
hide anything in this day and age. And I think, the overall theme I tell a lot of kids is like, look, if you're gonna use it, be smart about it. Like, would your grandma approve of you putting that on the internet?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's,
like, use that as your barometer.
for me, it's my dad.
Yeah, there you go.
My
Even better.
dad, my dad follows me, and like I'm like, okay, like I might, when we used to be able to go on nights out, I'd like post a picture or whatever, and like I would have to think about it. I'm like, okay, like would my dad approve of this, or like, and I still like use that as my barometer because like my dad follows me and I want him to be able to like be proud of me and like
Sure.
my stuff and not feel as if like it's a bit weird if he likes my picture. I'm his daughter.
That's right. So on that subject, you kind of hinted to like the lockdowns a little bit. How has this pandemic affected your situation as far as being able to create content and staying engaged online? What's that been like?
It's completely changed. Like obviously last year I started a new job just as the pandemic hit. So that was very, very difficult and took up a lot of my time. And yeah, like when the golf courses kind of opened up, I was able to go and shoot a couple of course vlogs, but you were pretty restricted on what you could and couldn't do. Whereas now with our like third lockdown, I've just been like, everyone's in the same boat. Let's try and make as much as I possibly can and be as creative as I can with it. And yes, it's led to me looking a little bit insane and singing on my social media, which if you had told me a few years ago that I would be singing a golf sea shanty on my Instagram, I would have told you you're mental,
That's
not
right.
me. But yeah, I think that like TikTok and other things like they have opened up an opportunity for me to be like, okay, let's kind of show that funny goofball kind of side of my personality, which has been brilliant. Scotland's in a different situation compared to the other Great Britain countries, and it's like golf is open in Scotland. It's unfortunately not open fully to me. Like I can go to the range and stuff, but golf courses are closed to members only at the moment. Which, because of COVID, I completely understand. Members are the priorities. They're the ones that have been paying a membership for, countless months and not being able to play. So
Sure.
that's fine. And then obviously the weather's not being that great. The last thing I want to do is go shoot a video in the rain. I'll pass.
Right.
But yeah, so like I feel as if since Jan 1st, I've just been like, right, let's like hit the ground running. Let's, utilize these other apps that the youngsters are on, TikTok and stuff, and it's been a lot of fun, and it has allowed me to just make these silly videos.
Right. Well, I mean, I was telling I was talking to Dr. Rob Bell, and he obviously has a bigger clout than I do, but I was telling him, I said, since Reels came out on Instagram, when like TikTok was going to get shut down and all sort of stuff, I mean, my Instagram is up 150% since I started doing Reels. It's crazy. And
yeah.
Little did I know, like, how I could have been the golf coach that can create a 30-second tip with some music behind it and actually be a worthwhile tip that people like. And I'm like, that thought never would have happened in my head if Reels weren't a thing, right? And so
yeah,
it's funny how we can kind of like, the situation drives our creativity a little bit, right? You're in lockdown 87 and 32, trying to figure out a way to create content, and singing might be the thing. I don't know. Maybe you're going to be on the next, whatever. Not American Idol, was it the UK's version of it, whatever? But
yeah, UK's Got Talent. Honestly, I did an Instagram live the other day. And the first comment that came up on it was like, "Oh, live sea shanty." I was like, "Not a chance! Like, I'm not going to start singing on my lives. Like, that's a step too far." But like, it's different, and I think people are engaging with it. It was. I think a lot of people, it was just unexpected. And where it did the best was Twitter, which I was really surprised at. But I think it's because people were so ready to like hit that retweet button or so that was great. I think it got viewed like 30,000 times nearly, like on Twitter.
That's solid.
And then, so then I think it's like, I don't know how many views it's had on Instagram now, But yeah, Twitter is where it had a lot of views, and then Facebook, and then the Ladies European Tour shared it.
Oh, nice.
So like that was something that I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get the original sea shanty who was done by this Scottish postman who's now got a record deal. So I thought, bugger, I can't sleep, can't get it out of my head. I'm gonna write a golf version and record it. And I sent it to my sister because I was like, am I in tune? Because like I didn't want to be those people that you see on like the X Factor and like Pop Idol and stuff that think they're in tune, think they're Mariah Carey, but they don't. They sound like your cat screaming in the back garden. So I was like, Abby, like, am I in tune? She was like, yes, you're in tune. You 100% have to post this. This is hilarious. So I was like, is it funny, like, haha with me, or funny, haha at me? Like, that's the other thing that you have to, like, especially when you're doing something that's, yeah, because the other thing is people are used to seeing me golf. Like, that's it. They want to see me on a golf course. They want to see me doing that. Did they want to see me singing? I wasn't too sure about it, but I thought, fuck it, like let's put this out there and see what happens.
I mean, I get it. Sometimes you gotta take that step, you know what I mean? And there's been, I think I've probably not posted like half a dozen like different like reels so far, where like it just didn't coincide with like who I was, right? And I've like I kind of like showed it to like the wife, or I've showed it to my assistant coach Philip, and it was like, what do you think? And he's like, you can't do that. I was like, okay, never mind. This one's getting thrown away. I'm like, never mind. This was good effort, not the right mentality. And so it's tough when you're trying to be creative like that, like because like you were saying just there with your pitch, right, or your tones. It's like, am I crazy? Is this like? Do you think this is a good idea? And like the same thing happened with me, right? Except I went with my gut on this one. It was like when Tiger completely tanked on 12 at Augusta, right, and like hit 3 in the water or whatever. We were at Disney World. And I couldn't sleep. I was like already awake, and I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm gonna make like it was the same time that like that "Oh No" version of the song was coming out, right? So I lined it up with every time the ball went in the water. It was hilarious. And I showed my wife, she goes, "Oh, that's too mean. You can't do that." I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is gonna be a hit. 400,000 views later. I'm like, I knew it.
Yeah.
I wasn't the only one that thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like those things, and I think that the main thing that I've changed with my content, as much as I'm trying to be more authentically myself this year, is I viewed it from the other side. What do I want to see? What engages me? What makes me laugh? What are people engaging with, and viewing it as the viewer, opposed to the person that's creating the content. But yeah, if you like told me I'd be singing and dancing on my social media, I would have told you you're insane.
All right, so without requesting any singing or dancing, as we wrap up today, what, if you had to give a message to a junior golfer like yourself, when you like look back to 16-year-old, 17-year-old Rachel, and you had to tell yourself, something inspirational or something motivational, what would you tell yourself back then to make sure that you still are as successful as you are today?
I think I would tell younger Rachel that what I have planned in my head isn't always going to work out, and that's 100% okay, because everything happens for a reason. What's meant for you won't go past you, and as long as you still do what you're doing and stay true to yourself and encourage the growth of the game and the passion behind it and show how much you love golf, everything's going to be a-okay.
That's solid. I love it. Well, I mean, it's true though. I mean, I think too many people try to hit home runs, right?
Yeah.
I think that's everybody's in it for the next big home run, thinking that this is going to be the thing, and you hear it a lot of times on these stupid motivational Instagram pages about failure or whatever. But if you only got a single out of that hit instead of a home run, you still got a hit. And that's what you got to find is, it may not have been a homer, but at the same time, you still got to first base. And I think that's where a lot of people have a hard time getting through some of the hard, failures and struggles, and when things don't work out the way they had planned. I mean, I have plenty of my stories that just, but, I think at the same time, you've obviously taken a lot of risks, in your life, having, traveled to Texas, never seen it, coming to Tennessee, and then getting booted back to Scotland, having to refigure out life plans. I mean, you are a story of perseverance, and I think that's something that was always interesting for me to follow. Is just like how well you keep adapting. And if anything, people walk away from this podcast is like, you got to be true to yourself, and you got to be able to put yourself out there. So Rachel, how can people find you when you're putting yourself out there on social media? It's for them to see what you're doing, aside from sea shanties, which I'm sure is all over the internet.
Yeah. So the best way to find me is, of course, like on all my social channels, which are at Rach McQueen. Super easy. But yeah, on Instagram, I'm at Rach McQueen. On Twitter, I'm at Rach McQueen. You should be able to find me on Facebook, no problem. Just Rach McQueen Golf, I think it is on Facebook, and then on YouTube it's Rach McQueen as well. So but I'll be launching a new website very, very soon, so you'll have all that there too.
Dang, a little teaser there for us at the very end. I like that. Great job. Well, thank you, Rachel, for the time today, and I appreciate you coming on the show.
No, thank you so much for having me.